Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of F122 My Team Career Mode here on the channel. Our final race with a base paint scheme here in the game before we move to a modded livery for the first time in this 2022 My Team Career Mode that I'm excited for you guys to see going into the next episode in Monaco. So you won't see it this episode, but you'll see it in the next one in the Monaco GP, coming off of our first ever point in Formula 1 in Miami. What a GP and what a circuit it is to drive on in Miami, but a wild race, especially towards the end where we saw Daniel Ricciardo actually have a huge crash with Pierre Gasly, and that actually resulted in Pierre Gasly picking up 2 penalty points from the FIA. As you see right there, the press release, he picked up 2 penalty points after his, embarrassing just decision to remain in the middle of the track with a expired engine on the straightaway in Miami, resulting with Ricciardo just absolutely obliterating the AlphaTauri. So very unfortunate for Pierre Gasly there to get a penalty there towards him now as we come through into Spain. And well, it was, I can tell you already before we really get into it, it was kind of Spain without the S. Last time I came to Spain, or the first time I came to Spain in the F1 2021 career mode, it was one of the worst races of my career mode in general. I don't know what it was, but I didn't have any speed. There was never any pace in the car, so I was curious to see how that was going to translate over to this brand new F122 game and car and whatnot. And well, it was actually quite a difference actually, because I had some pretty good pace in this car early on in practice. Here we come up on the newly configured left-hander right here in this third and final sector. Oh, way better corner. So many of these track improvements are really legitimate improvements here. Abu Dhabi, so much better to drive on. You go to Australia, so much better to drive on in Australia. Catalonia right here sucks still, but the final sector is quite a bit better with that one corner difference. Now that final chicane right there is still really annoying to get through, and I just always struggle getting through there, but we were, like I said, looking quite competitive here in practice. You see this little yellow turtle sausage curb looking thing right there? You got to be really careful on that. You see any basically yellow curbing, you got to be really careful on here in this game, and there's a whole just strip of it there on the right side of the track on the exit of that left-hander that goes uphill, so you got to be really careful now as we come through into qualifying after a very competitive practice session with this Trackhouse car. And I was hopeful that we could put up a competitive result here in practice. You know, Miami and really every qualifying this season hasn't gone great, but we don't expect these qualifyings to go great here. We've made it into Q2 one time this season, and that was in Jeddah, I think it was. So we're gonna see if we can maybe do that here again in Spain now as we come through towards the end of our first lap in our first qualifying attempt. Right now, Nicholas Latifi, George Russell, actually there in 19th place. Russell now down to 20th. He missed Q2 along with Max Verstappen in Miami. Is Russell gonna miss Q2 again? It certainly looks like there is a possibility that is going to happen. We come through the cross line for our first attempt though. We go P18, a couple tenths off of our teammate of Oscar Piastri, but late in the session on our second set of soft compound tires, we had found about nearly 3/10 of a second here. Now into the left-hander, got through there really well compared to my first attempt. Now nearly 4/10 of a second, but we would find about half a second total, nearly 6/10 of a second here through the final turn, and this is going to be good enough to go ahead of our teammate of Piastri. We actually go across the line P16. We would be the final car to advance into Q2, and for the second GP weekend in a row, George Russell is going to be out in Q1. What is going on for the British driver at Mercedes of George Russell? P21 is where George Russell is going to start the Spanish Grand Prix. Absolute embarrassment there for the Mercedes driver in back-to-back episodes now as we come through for our attempt here in Q2. I didn't expect very much here out of this one. I was expecting to qualify 16th place, so I wasn't putting everything on the line right here. I knew we weren't really going to be able to do much here. I mean, I put everything on the line in Q1 and we only went P16, so we crossed the line to go exactly P16 here, and I just accepted it at the fact that we couldn't do much better than that. So P16 is where we will be starting on the grid here for the Spanish Grand Prix. As you can see, Zhou Guanyu, Norris, Ricardo, Tsunoda, Albon, and myself all missed out on advancing into Q3. But now it is time to head to the grid here for the Spanish Grand Prix.
The Spanish Grand Prix has been a permanent fixture on the Formula One calendar for over 30 years now, and for good reason. Do you remember Michael Schumacher's absolute dominance here in that rain-soaked Grand Prix in 1996? That day, he took his first ever victory for Ferrari, and we've had many more iconic moments since. The Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, a track that will certainly force the drivers to push themselves. It consists of a very impressive main straight going into turn 1. It's a straight that also offers a DRS zone, so it's likely to be a hotspot for overtakes. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Perez, Valtteri Bottas, and Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Ocon, Joe, and Lando Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda, and Albon, Golden Boy, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll, Vettel, Russell, Latifi, and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And a warm welcome to Natalie Pinkham, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Let's start with Alfa Romeo. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Ready to go green here in Spain at Circuit de Catalunya now as we start P15 on the grid after a grid penalty there. George Russell will have to keep an eye on him and see if he can work his way through the grid as well. As you can see the strategy there. It was originally a soft to hard compound strategy, but I actually decided to go with the medium to hard compound instead. Basically the strategy that we've seen in every episode so far. Notice that there is no replay cameras at the beginning of this GP, and it'll make sense a little bit later on, so pay attention to that here as we're gonna get back underway for the first time here in this GP now as we start from P15. Piastri, our teammate there, in P16. It's gonna be 5 red lights as we are gonna be underway here from the Spanish GP. It was not a good launch at all from myself here now, as you can actually see a terrible start for myself here. We drop all the way down to about dead last here, down to P21 behind Nicholas Latifi. Gasly with the grid penalty. He's going to lunge up my inside. I actually go around the left side, nearly off the circuit. I did go off the circuit there to the left side of Nicholas Latifi, but we do gain the spot there as I did try to check up and not pass him actually off the track. There was a little bit of contact with the four-time world champion of Sebastian Vettel there as I was immediately surveying there with the MFD to see if there was some damage on the front wing. It looks like we escaped a bit of a disaster right there as we go around the outside. Some chaos happening in there in front of us. Piastri with some form of issue, maybe some oversteer right there, but we hold on relatively well here on the left side of Alonso. Some big names here in the bottom part of the grid. You got Russell, you got Alonso, you got as well Pierre Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, but that car is just slow in general, so it's not going to go anywhere here. So Alonso's going to step up the aggression. Looks up my right hand side here now as we head down this long straightaway. Surprisingly, we just avoid getting underbody damage there. It's very easy to damage the underbody on this circuit in specific because of the way the curbing is here, and especially through this chicane right here, you can easily pick up some underbody damage, so we got to be a little bit careful of that as we came through to the conclusion of the first lap. Running wide again, surprisingly, haven't gotten a warning yet now, as you can see Latifi alongside me on the right there. Now I'm in overtake mode, and he's still able to stay dead even with me here down this front straightaway. Who's going to give? That's the question here, side by side, wheel to wheel, into turn 1 with Nicholas Latifi, fellow Canadian, but we are able to stay ahead there, hold on to P20, and immediately I'm noticing that pace that we had in practice, that pace that we had in qualifying, it just doesn't seem to be here in this car today, and that was being proven over the next couple of laps here because I wasn't able to close in on anybody in front of me, and I was basically fighting for my life to keep Nicholas Latifi behind me. Sebastian Vettel was 24 seconds back. He actually had to come into the pit lane at the end of the first lap. He had somewhere picked up some form of front wing damage on the opening lap at some point here, so I was, like I said, holding on for 21st or 20th over 21st of Latifi, getting a bit of a warning right there for exceeding the track limits, but that pace that I had all weekend long has just simply disappeared. I had absolutely nothing here now, as you can see myself just trying my best to close the gap to the cars in front of Gasly, of Fernando Alonso, but it's just simply not happening. Charles Leclerc once again dominating here in the Spanish GP. It's unbelievable how strong Leclerc's been. Alonso goes off the circuit in front of us there. Looked like he might have had a run-in potentially with up here, Gasly or someone, and that sent him off the circuit, so we gained a position that way, but we haven't really been able to make much of an on-track pass so far, barely, in this race now as we come through to the 10th lap already in this GP, and we hadn't gone anywhere. But pit stop cycles were starting to get underway. Sainz was in, Ricardo and whatnot as well, as Lance Stroll had all come into the pit lane. So what we're hoping for already here is a safety car. Our teammate of Piastri on that soft compound tire comes into the pit lane at the conclusion of lap 10, so we're going to be able to pass him as well as Lando Norris. So we're slowly cycling forward, but obviously we have to come into the pit lane and do our own stop here and give up all that track position. So really just kind of hoping that a safety car is going to spice it up for us and give us kind of a break that we need, because that pace is just not there in this Trackhouse car today. I knew we were in trouble when we were having to fight Nicholas Latifi, but Fernando Alonso was actually able to run us down. He was able to pass us, and Carlos Sainz was next up in line. He, on the other hand, other than Alonso, who was just trying to pass us after going off track, Sainz is actually just passing us because of the pit cycle. So far, knock on wood for Carlos Sainz, he hasn't driven off the circuit here today in Spain in his home race, so he's having a decent drive so far. As actually, I did pick up some underbody damage right there on the curb, so that is not going to make our day any better here, as that just adds on to the rough day we're already having here in the Spanish GP. Now, as you're going to see it, Bottas and myself have a bit of a close call in the turn when he was exiting the pit lane on those very cold, hard compound tires as I was getting ready to make my pit stop at the end of the same lap here of lap 15. So into the pit lane we go. Nicholas Latifi going to follow us into the pit lane here. Crucial to try and stay ahead of that Williams. I remember battling Latifi in F1 2021 at this track. We talked about how miserable that race was. It was Latifi, the same driver we were battling there, but I could not pass him in that race here now as we're looking for the best turn in possible here for purple. We get a purple, which is going to better our pit stop time, but it's not going to better our time when they struggle to get the left rear tire off the car, and that leads to a slow pit stop, and we're going to give up the position to Nicholas Latifi. Not what we needed whatsoever as we rejoin the track, and look at the gap between myself and Latifi, and on these really cold tires, I struggled a lot more on the cold hard tires than Latifi did on this opening lap, so I gave away about 3 seconds of time to Nicholas Latifi on this opening lap here. Now as we come to lap 17 of 33, the safety car is going to actually come out on the track, and I couldn't really get a good look of what happened with the replay issue that I was having, but here's what I could find is Zhou Guanyu loses his right front wheel. He went off the circuit, came back on, crashed into the sand, the safety car comes out, and now here's why I didn't have any good replay angles in the first half of the race. So the safety car comes out, I'm told to not exceed delta pace, but right here, what in the world just happened at the top of the screen? It started messing up where it's telling me to catch a safety car, but it's also telling me do not exceed the delta pace, and this was continuously going on. It never went away through the whole safety car period, which means nobody could catch the safety car from basically 7th or so on down, and we all had to ride in the same spot. And I did a mid-session save, quit the game, came back into the game hoping that it would fix it, and it did not, and that's why we didn't have replay cameras. So we had to ride here for the whole duration of the safety car, which didn't come in until the conclusion of lap 20. So an extremely weird period of time, and a bug obviously in the game that we've gotten the safety car we wanted, but a bug with the safety car has ruined our chances of capitalizing on the safety car period. Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, their top five as we were back underway. So there's a bug to report to Codemasters, of course, that's very unfortunate that has happened to us now, as that was not a bug I was expecting to see, and I actually tried mid-race saving the session 2 different times, hoping that it would work, and unfortunately, as you could tell there, it never worked, but that's why we lost the replays for the first half of the race and on the start here now, but we have them for the last half. As speaking of some battles that we've had throughout this race, here comes Sebastian Vettel up the inside in a turn 1, a wheel-to-wheel battle with a 4-time champ who's been trying to recover from that pit stop he had to make early on in the race. He was still wheel to wheel through the right-hander, now a very sketchy corner. You can lose the grip so easily and go around right there, but Vettel has just more pace than I do. I just don't have pace in this car today. I just cannot understand what has happened to this car in the terms of, you know, in practice and qualifying it was so good, and then in the race it's just so not good. It's so slow. I really don't know what's happened. No AI was adjusted. The difficulty stayed the exact same from practice all the way to the GP, so I don't know where the pace went. Simple as that. We had such good pace in the sessions early. earlier in the weekend, and we just lost it all here in the GP in what's been a frustrating race so far, as we currently run 18th place on the grid. Russell down there in 19th. He's had some more rough luck here today in Spain, and he was closing in on myself quick. Sonoda had some wing damage. He had to make an extra pit stop. He was down in 20th place, the last car running, and we are just having a miserable race here. For the first time this season, it looks like Oscar Piastri might actually beat us here in a GP. He's had pace to beat us this season, but he's not had the luck on his side now, as Russell would finally run me down with help from the DRS. He's able to easily pass us down to 19th place we go. Sonoda should not run us down. Latifi was wide right there. You saw him now get passed by Vettel here. As you can see, actually a few moments later on lap 27, Perez goes wide in turn 1 after a lockup opened the door for Max Verstappen to take second place. Lewis Hamilton up into third, looking for his second podium in a row. Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard, in his home GP, a lunge up the inside of Perez as well through the right hander. They're going to be wheel to wheel with the Red Bull and the Ferrari duo going at it here now, as Leclerc in this runaway race once again loves all this battling he sees behind him, because he knows there's no chance any of these drivers are going to be even close to running him down here now, as they're still wheel to wheel. Perez with an awkward corner there, and that opened the door for Perez to go around the outside, or sorry, Sainz to go around the outside of Perez. So we continue to run 19th place, trying to close in on Nicholas Latifi here now, as we are only coming up on the final few laps in this GP, and it was looking like we're destined for 19th place. You can see the Latifi, Piastri, Vettel, they're not far ahead, but I just couldn't get close enough. Even with the DRS assistance, I just couldn't seem to get to the back of Latifi to get him within range to where I could make a move on the Williams driver now. Coming to lap 31 of 33, same situation here. Same song, different verse. It felt like the whole race long. Leclerc in dominant fashion here in Spain, just like it's been all season long. Every time Leclerc has gone to the top step of the podium this season, it's been in dominant fashion, and it's about to happen one more time here in the Spanish Grand Prix now, as Leclerc is going to come through the final corner, and Charles Leclerc again will win here in Spain. Max Verstappen is going to be runner-up to him. Lewis Hamilton with a third place podium finish for the second consecutive races. We are coming through now the final DRS straightaway into this one final left sweeping hander here as we come through, getting the power down a little bit too much, and we're actually going to go for a spin on this final lap. There, a big choke from myself, just pushing too hard, trying to get closer to the Canadian of Nicholas Latifi, and we've completely thrown it away on this final lap here after a miserable GP, taking underbody damage, which didn't help our cause by any means earlier in this Grand Prix, and now we're just going to cruise through this third and final sector after what was looking to be a promising weekend has simply turned into probably the hardest weekend so far for myself in this Trackhouse Racing team. Piastri is able to outpace us there for a 17th place finish. This is a GP we are going to want to forget very soon when we head into Monaco in the next episode there. What a rough day. Driver of the day is going to go to George Russell. Let's head to the podium for the celebrations.
A real team effort then, which has paid off in spades. A great victory here at the Spanish Grand Prix. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Ferrari are at it again. An excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there.
There you see the podium celebrations. Charles Leclerc on top, Max Verstappen second there, but once again, Lewis Hamilton joining them on the podium. And Mercedes has made some upgrades there recently in the R&D, and that's brought them a little bit closer to Red Bull. And Ferrari is kind of, on their own little platform right now. We saw Red Bull close the gap in the, of course, early rounds, and they were able to actually get on top of Ferrari in Jeddah. But then Ferrari has since then opened the gap even more and Ferrari is just so far gone. Red Bull has been losing ground to Mercedes. Mercedes continues to close in on Red Bull here, and we'll see in these coming races if they can actually overtake Red Bull and then maybe get closer to Ferrari and put the fight to them. And kind of don't want to see Mercedes take back over, but it's almost looking like we could be shaping up for a potential Mercedes takeover relatively soon here as we wrap up this episode from the Spanish Grand Prix, in which was, like I said, so frustrating for us here in Spain. Just nothing ever went our way in this episode. And in the next one, we head to Monaco. We're gonna have a brand new modded livery on the car for Monaco that we'll have for the rest of the season. I'll show you guys that obviously at the beginning of the next episode. New fire suits as well. Cannot wait for you guys to see what we have in the works for that one. It is going to be a really, really beautiful livery that we have on the car for this Trackhouse Racing team. New sponsors on the car, etc. Like I said, cannot wait for you guys to see that. If you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. That's going to wrap it up for myself here. And heading into Monaco, we'll see if Charles Leclerc's bad Monaco luck can kind of come back to bite him here and be his first rough race of the season, because he's won so many races so far. His worst finish of the season, still second place at Jeddah. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all for taking the time of your day for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody.